Welcome to Whale Facts, the channel where big brains meet bigger curiosity. Imagine standing inside a city of 3,000 neighborhoods, each buzzing with its own language. That's your brain. Scientists have now mapped over 3,000 kinds of brain cells, yet a mystery remains. Why do a few small groups seem to steer your personality, your feelings, and how you see the world? Tonight we'll travel from cell atlases to hidden networks, meet rare VIP neurons, and listen to the chemical conductors that color your moods. By the end, you'll know why a tiny fraction of cells can punch way above their weight, and why you is a moving target. First, how do we even know there are more than 3,000 cell types? Over the last few years, the Brain Initiative's large international consortia built gigantic cell atlases of the human brain. They sampled tiny bits of tissue, cracked open single cells or nuclei, and read out which genes were turned on. When you cluster millions of these genetic barcodes, distinct families appear: excitatory neurons, inhibitory neurons, glia, and then subfamilies and subfamilies. Add epigenomic tags in 3D location, and the family tree branches past 3,000 leaves. Projects like the Allen Brain Atlas stitch these layers together so researchers can click from a cortical column down to a specific inhibitory subtype. The exact number will keep changing as methods sharpen and definitions shift, but the headline is solid. The brain is astonishingly diverse. That diversity is not trivia. It gives scientists the lookup table that links the cell's molecular identity to its connections, its firing style, and eventually to behavior and disease. In other words, a census first, meaning later. New drafts of the developing brain and cross-species maps add another layer. How types emerge over time, and which ones humans may tweak compared with apes or whales. It's the difference between a snapshot and a time-lapse documentary. Okay, where does the feeling of me live? Neuroscience points to networks that light up together rather than a single spot. The default mode network, running through medial prefrontal, posterior cingulate, and angular regions, comes online when you daydream, recall your past, or simulate your future. It's the inward narrator. The salience network, anchored in the anterior insula and anterior cingulate, flags what's important right now and switches you between internal musings and goal-directed focus. Limbic circuits tag experiences with emotion. Prefrontal areas weigh options and hold plans in working memory. Your identity emerges from the traffic pattern between these hubs, shaped by context and chemistry. When the dial is misset, say dopamine rumination that won't quiet, mood disorders can creep in. But for healthy brains, the networks flex. Alone on a walk, dopamine takes the mic. Facing a deadline, salience and control networks call the plays. You is a choreography, not a pin on a map. Zoom in and you'll find microcircuits that bias the dance. Some cells whispering remember, others nudging act now, with timing signals that help the whole ensemble stay in step. Meet a rare candidate for VIP status. Von Economo neurons, often called spindle neurons. They're long, elegant cells found mostly in two hubs, the anterior cingulate cortex and the frontoinsular cortex, areas tied to self-awareness, social intuition, and the gut-level sense that something matters. VNs are not numerous, but they're big and likely fast signaling, ideal for relaying summary signals across distant regions. Their distribution is intriguing. Humans, great apes, elephants, and several whale species have them, a hint that complex social lives may favor this design. Clinical clues add spice. Some disorders that bend empathy, interoception, or decision urgency show changes in these regions where VNs cluster. Do they define who you are? Not by themselves. Think of them as express lanes that help the brain integrate how I feel inside with what's happening out there, shaping rapid judgments about trust, fairness, or risk. When the express lanes flow, you feel centered. When they jam, the world can feel louder, colder, or oddly distant. And because VNs sit in hubs that talk to the default mode and salience networks, they're perfectly placed to tilt the conversation toward me, us, or danger. Small nuclei, giant influence. Deep in the midbrain, dopamine cells in the ventral tegmental area fire when outcomes beat or miss your expectations. That prediction error teaching signal helps stamp in habits, focus attention, and energize pursuit. But the BTA is a mixed neighborhood. Along with dopamine neurons live GABA and glutamate cells that fine-tune motivation, curiosity, and impulse control. Farther back, serotonergic neurons in the Raphi nuclei project almost everywhere, modulating mood, patience, and the sense of safety versus threat. These systems don't dictate personality, yet they color its palette. A slightly hotter dopamine drive can skew toward novelty seeking. A steadier serotonin tone can buffer stress. medications and experiences, exercise, sleep, meaningful rewards, can shift these chemicals' tempo, nudging how the world feels without changing the facts of it. Fewer cells than cortex, but broadcast towers all the same. Crucially, both systems interact. Dopamine may say go, while serotonin asks should we. Their dialogue shapes learning under uncertainty. When to explore, when to wait, when to quit. Tip the balance, and the same event can feel like a triumph or a trap. If chemistry sets the mood, timing sets the beat. Parvalbumin positive interneurons, tiny but mighty, act like the brain's break-in metronome. They grab excitable pyramidal cells by the lapels and say, not all at once, synchronizing spikes into gamma band rhythms. Those rhythms support attention, working memory, and the ability to filter noise from signal. Because PV cells are few and fast, tweaks to their strength can ripple outward. Too little inhibition and thoughts feel scattered. Too much inflexibility stiffens. Research links EI imbalance to anxiety traits and cognitive sluggishness, and experimental nudges that restore balance can sharpen perception in animals. Translation to people is early, but the lesson is clear. Small interneuron ensembles can reformat the very way information flows, changing how the world looks and how quickly you can pivot. Think of them as stage managers. You rarely notice them directly, yet every spotlight, cue, and costume change depends on their timing. How do these ingredients become uniquely you? Development writes the score. Before birth and through childhood, gene regulatory programs turn on and off in waves, guiding where cell types settle and who they talk to. Adolescence then prunes synapses and recalibrates excitation-inhibition balance, tightening some circuits and loosening others. One reason teens feel emotions in bold italics. Experience keeps editing. Stress, safety, language, friendship, and culture all tweak neuromodulators and strengthen certain pathways. Two people can share the same cell types yet build different traffic patterns, like cities with identical road materials but wildly different rush hours. Genes matter, but so does practice. Sleep, exercise, therapy, and fulfilled experiences can shift chemistry and timing, sometimes surprisingly fast. No single marker predicts personality, yet small leverage points abound, habits that tune the network so the default setting you wake up to tomorrow edges a little closer to the person you want to be. And because brains stay plastic, the story isn't fixed. New relationships, new skills, or a calmer environment can reweight the same circuits and yield a different felt world. So who are the kingmakers? Not one magic cell, but several leverage points. The default mode and salience networks framing the inner narrator, rare von Economo neurons speeding high-level summaries, small dopamine and serotonin hubs tinting motivation and mood, quick PV interneurons keeping the beat. Each group is a tiny share of your brain, yet each can sway the whole orchestra. That's empowering. You can't swap your cell types, but you can retune the ensemble: sleep, movement, attention training, meaningful rewards, therapy, Here at Whale Facts, we chase the hidden structure behind everyday experience. If this journey made your world feel a little sharper, subscribe for more brainy deep dives and share it with a friend.